Fear. It's one of the few universal constants in this life alongside death, taxes, and someone uploading a new Dragon Ball Super trailer every 3 minutes. Humans have always feared something, and we've been writing about it for just as long. But what's fascinating about reading horror across different time periods is seeing how our fears change. In the Middle Ages, people were mostly afraid of one thing, God and whatever he had waiting for them after they died. So most spooky stories revolved around damnation and featured things like the devil or demons. Nowadays, people are more afraid of the dark because they don't have their parents tucking them into bed anymore. And while modern horror might touch on the idea of damnation every now and then, nowadays we're more likely to get there by getting stabbed by a maniac with a meat cleaver rather than by making a deal with the actual devil. Classic whodunit. One thing that hasn't changed, however, is our perennial fear of the crumbling old castle. Ever since Horace Walpole published The Castle of Otranto in 1764, a story considered to be the first Gothic novel ever written, writers have been having a ball with the crumbling Italianate castle as the setting for spooky stories. There's just something about the idea of these vast, dark stone buildings looming over you as you wander through their labyrinthine halls that really gets under your skin. Even if you're not particularly scared of the dark, it's no wonder that our anxiety surrounding castles has survived all these years, especially considering how many of our favorite modern horror movies use them as settings. We've got the others starring Nicole Kidman, Dracula, Hellboy 2, The Woman in Black, and, of course, The Castle Freak, which, yes, is another Hellboy movie. Yeah, this franchise is like the Energizer Bunny when it comes to coming up with increasingly outlandish premises. Anyway, I'm sure there's some deep psychological reason why castles scare us so much. But personally, I think it's because I really, really want a bedroom with a view, and all the best bedrooms with a view are in castles, and I'm too poor to afford one. Still, even though castles will probably continue to be used as horror settings until the end of time, that doesn't mean they're the only thing that can send shivers down our spines. For example, everyone was pretty stoked about spaceships for the first half of the 20th century. As rockets started becoming a reality, authors began to imagine what might happen if people went up into space. And while those early sci-fi stories often had a positive message, they still painted a picture of the unknown and the dangers that lurked within it. Take, for instance, The Sentinel by John W. Campbell Jr., written in 1942. This novella takes place at an unnamed Antarctic research station where a team of scientists have detected strange radio signals coming from Mars. When a mysterious alien ship arrives, it's up to one man to stop it from destroying humanity. That's right. It's a very loose adaptation of the War of the Worlds, but with Martians replaced by a race of hyper-intelligent octopi who worship an entity called the Controller. This makes the original Martians look like meaty toddlers. Because the Controller is beyond human comprehension, its motives are inscrutable and its power is utterly overwhelming. In the end, the protagonist is forced to blow himself up in order to stop the Controller's ship from reaching Earth. Talk about a bleak ending. What's fascinating about the Sentinel is how even when humanity is facing extinction, it's still more afraid of what lies beyond our understanding than the things we can comprehend. And it's a theme that would go on to define much of the cosmic horror genre pioneered by authors like H.P. Lovecraft and August Derleth. Humanity's biggest threat isn't some monster or demon trying to break into our world. It's the terrifying knowledge of the universe's vastness and the realization that we are truly alone in it. And what could be more frightening than that? Well, how about a bunch of monsters and demons trying to break into our world? Like in The Sentinel, Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos introduces us to an array of nightmarish creatures like the Deep Ones, Shoggoths, and, of course, Cthulhu himself. These beings come from beyond our dimension, and they exist outside the bounds of human understanding. Just like the Controller and the Sentinel, their motives are inscrutable, and their power is overwhelming. We can't hope to defeat them. All we can do is run and hide. But what's so scary about cosmic horror is that, unlike traditional horror, there's no real way to defend ourselves against the creatures that inhabit Lovecraft's universe. He wrote his stories in the 1920s and 30s before nuclear weapons were invented. And even he realized that nothing humans could do would stand up against the likes of Cthulhu. In the story, The Call of Cthulhu, the narrator describes the creature's size and power, saying it was a huge, octopus-like thing with a head such as a man's, but vastly larger, with great eyes like saucers and waving tentacles. No earthly weapon could withstand that sort of monstrosity. Our only hope would be to hope that it swims away. These stories explore the darkest corners of our universe and the most terrifying aspects of humanity's existence. And they are a reminder that we should be grateful that we never have to face the horrors that lie beyond our own dimension. Or maybe we shouldn't be grateful and instead should prepare ourselves for the inevitable day when one of those tentacle monsters breaks into our world and decides that we taste delicious. As the 20th century progressed, people became more aware of the fragility of human life. The two world wars and the Cold War made it clear that mankind's existence was precarious at best, and that we could be wiped out at any moment by forces both natural and man-made. With this realization came a new kind of fear, the fear of our own destruction. This is evident in stories like A Canticle for Leibowitz by Walter Miller Jr. Set in a post-apocalyptic future, the novel follows a group of monks as they try to preserve human knowledge after a devastating nuclear war. The story is a meditation on the destructive power of humanity and the importance of preserving our culture and history. This is also true of Stephen King's The Stand, a post-apocalyptic epic about a group of survivors who band together after a deadly virus wipes out most of the population. The book explores themes of good versus evil, faith, and the resilience of the human spirit. More recently, we've seen a surge in climate fiction, or cli-fi for short, which deals with the effects of climate change and the possibility of ecological collapse. Books like The Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler and The Water Knife by Paolo Bacigalupi paint a grim picture of the future if we fail to address the climate crisis. Butler's novel is set in a near-future Los Angeles that's been devastated by drought, rising sea levels, and extreme weather events. The story follows Lauren Olamina, a young woman who leads a group of survivors out of the city in search of a better life. Meanwhile, The Water Knife depicts a future where water is scarce and violence over its distribution is commonplace. The novel paints a bleak picture of a future America torn apart by environmental disaster. Ultimately, these stories serve as cautionary tales, reminding us of the importance of protecting the planet and the need for urgent action to address the climate crisis. They also show us the incredible resilience of the human spirit and our ability to adapt to even the most challenging circumstances. Now, if you're anything like me, you're probably thinking, great, just great. If my tax dollars aren't being spent on military contractors to build me a rocket to Mars so I can escape the hellhole that is this planet, then what the hell am I paying for? Look, I understand that there are other pressing issues that need to be addressed, but can we put aside our concerns about whether or not teachers have enough funding for a second and appreciate the fact that these crazy rich CEOs are spending their own money on colonizing Mars instead of asking the government for handouts? Because if anyone deserves a pat on the back for helping humanity, it's these billionaires who have devoted their entire lives to philanthropy. Now, if you're anything like me, you're probably thinking, great, just great. If my tax dollars aren't being spent on building me a rocket to Mars so I can escape the hellhole that is this planet, then what the hell am I paying for? Well, you're paying for this. Yes, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Richard Branson are spending their own money on colonizing Mars, which is great news for us poor folks who can't afford to buy a ticket on one of their rockets. hey, maybe we'll get to live in the future we deserve. So, yeah, I guess that's one way to look at it. Maybe these billionaires are single-handedly saving humanity from itself. Or maybe they're just in it for the money. Oh, wait, no. I'm sorry. You can't colonize space unless you're a billionaire? Damn. Well, looks like we're screwed. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. And as a special thank you to our patrons, I do like to remind you that love is the only way to defeat the monsters beyond our dimension.